This is it. It's happening. Good evening and welcome to ReCooper8 with me, Lucy Cooper, and hang on 1 second, Katie. I'm going to turn up all the microphones because I'm not quite sure which one you're on.
Is it me? Is it me now?
Yeah. Can I? Right, you speak.
Speak now. Hello, it's me. I'm back.
Yeah, I don't know which one you're on, so I'm going to just leave them all up. Hang on, I'm going to turn up our headphones. That's better.
There we go.
I am sorry. So this.
We're in a new studio.
We're in a new studio. We haven't been on air together for a while.
No.
So I'm a little bit nervous. I got to be honest with you,
too.
Katie. I'm a little bit nervous.
Yes, me too. I checked out the toilets earlier. Lovely.
They are delicious.
The new space is very nice.
It is. It's awesome, actually. And once we've kind of got used to where all the knobs are and what makes things work and how to boil the kettle, we're going to be like we used to be, flustered and unprofessional. So the other thing is, I'm not quite sure which microphone Katie's on, so I'm going to test them all. Let's take the public with us on this journey. I've turned them all off apart from me. I'm now going to put on microphone B. Oh, do you want to say a word?
Hello.
And again?
Hello.
No, that's not. And I now put on microphone C.
Hello again.
Nope. D?
SBA.
Oh,
there I am.
it's microphone D. That's good. We should write them a sticky.
We should.
Good. I'm going to turn you right up because you're quite quiet.
There I am.
Oh, that's better. Get right up close and personal.
Right.
So yeah, this is ReCooper8, and we are sponsored by the Top Pub.
Greytown Hotel.
And they are tremendous. And have they got...
Cider Sundays is a new thing working for summer. Jug of cider, a large hefty jug of cider in a platter with beautiful home-cured meats, pâtés.
Stop it. It looks delicious.
Yes, for $50, which is enough to feed 4 hungry adults. So that's a pretty good deal.
That is a very good deal, really good deal. So that's what the latest is going on at the Greytown Hotel. I'm finding that actually forming a sentence is actually proving a little bit tricky. Not quite sure where the verb goes anymore. You can check them out on Facebook. That's Greytown Hotel, otherwise known as the Top Pub, and they sponsor this show, and we are supremely grateful to them.
Wow.
As we've got a great show coming up tonight. We've got Felicity Abbott.
Yes. Who just happens to be my sister. So I'm very excited and feeling very proud. She's a production designer and she's agreed to be interviewed by us. She's in New Zealand at the moment, working on The Luminaries, which most of you will know is the 832-pager Man Booker Prize winner Eleanor Catton book. And so she'll be talking to us about all her other films and what it takes to be a production designer and lots of interesting things. Who else have we got? We've got Peter Biggs.
We do have Peter Biggs, who is the spokesperson for Featherston
Booktown.
Featherston Booktown. And they have a new announcement to make about the progression of that particular idea. And so Peter's going to come on the show and just talk to us about where Booktown has come from, where it's been and where it's going, which is very exciting. And then yesterday I had a great day at the Block Party 2018, which is a community party on Dixon, Queen, Park and another street which has escaped me, which is a shame. Anyway, at that quarter, kind of the arts quarter almost, which is what it's becoming in Marston, and the incredible energy of Madeline Slavic, who works for Aratoy, and honestly, I worked tirelessly to get that community party up and running, and had a great support from lots of other people, including all the participants, which were all the shopkeepers on those 4 streets, the one of which I can't remember the name of. So that went on from 10 till 2 yesterday, Saturday, and I went round capturing audio from heaps of people and caught up with Jade, whose surname is again slipped my. I'm sorry, it begins with a W. Waitford. Jade Waitford, that's right, isn't it? Yep. Yeah. Of Te Pātuki, which is the Māori Arts Centre, and also C for Jayastad, who is the manager of the community centre in Featherston, but is also an incredible artist, very prolific and a highly energetic artist, who also launched her latest project, Open Air Life, yesterday at the what was it called? The Block Party. And so I captured 2 great interviews, and honestly, I didn't have to do any editing. I just pointed my microphone at them and they just spoke with such eloquence. It was
Let's have a music. Have a music. Let's have a piece of music.
We're all a bit nervous still, aren't we?
Let's get Felicity on the line, and
That's a good idea.
we will be back.
We will.
Refreshed.
So what are we going to play?
Let's play, she'll like this one. This is off her playlist, Long Train Running by the Doobie Brothers. I bet I know why she's put this.
Okay.
Our father raised us on Doobie Brothers.
Did he?
I've got an inkling.
Right, let's have a look. Oh, look, now my phone's playing up. No, Long Train Running.
That's it.
Okay, I'm going to press that and It's working.
Okay.
I'm so professional. Oh no. Don't you hate those little breaks? Another 36 minutes, I'm going. Oh my gosh, I tell you what, it's been a whirlwind, a roller coaster, but I'm very excited to say that now I know exactly how long a Doobie Brothers track is, and I will never interrupt one again.
No, it's a rookie mistake.
It was really embarrassing.
If you're a proper DJ, you would have known that.
Well, this is the thing, I don't really know much about music, so so I'm just going to calm us all down by saying, my name's Lucy Cooper, you are
Katie Abbott,
and on the line we have, hopefully, the wonderful Felicity Abbott. Now, this is going to become as a shock to her because hopefully you can hear us. Felicity, can you hear us? Felicity?
Okay.
Oh, she can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hello. Hi, sister.
Hello. Right, we're just going to all calm ourselves. We'll keep doing deep breath exercise and all sorts.
While I do a little intro, so Felicity Abbott is a professional production designer, and Felicity, you're in New Zealand at the moment, but you've had a career all over the world. You're working on The Luminaries?
Yes, currently in Auckland, working in New Zealand for the first time.
Ever. Isn't that amazing?
That's incredible, goodness me.
Yep.
And for those who don't know, The Luminaries is Eleanor Catton's Man Booker Prize winner. So it's a bit of a hefty tome, isn't it? 832 pages, I heard. I didn't get quite all the way through it myself.
No shame there.
No, it's all right, yeah. And you're going to joining us tonight because you're going to talk to us a bit about, we're quite interested to find out what is all about production design, what goes on. Can you tell us a bit about your journey, about how you became to be a production designer?
Well, I guess I've always sort of been inclined toward the arts and making things, and didn't go until I was in my early 20s, I think. I ended up at Elam School of Fine Arts in Auckland.
Yep.
And did a 4-year degree in sculpture, and then was thinking about theatre design, and sort of happened to meet a British designer who was working here at the time, Michael Caine, on the sequel to Once Were Warriors.
Not Michael Caine. Not the Michael Caine.
And he actually gave me my first job in the art department, which was making marijuana plants for broken English with a hot glue gun on the floor of the art department for a couple of weeks. And
wow.
Yeah, I really liked it. I was sort of inspired by what they were all doing and this role of a production designer. And he was the one that actually encouraged me to go overseas and study, because there was really no course to study production design at graduate level in New Zealand. So yeah, that's sort of how I ended up going overseas to study.
And you studied in Australia and in France as well? What did you do there?
Australia has a fantastic, well, it did have at that point, great national film school, Australian Film, Television and Radio School, and it was very competitive at that point, but I was shortlisted and then interviewed and got a place in the school in 97. I started, and I was there till 99, and then got a postgraduate scholarship to go and study in France at the National Film School in Paris for a while, which was great because it was very traditional and kind of old-fashioned, as opposed to Australia, which was very much about the transition from film to digital, which was around about the time that I was studying. It was very much crossing over between, shooting on film, as it always traditionally was, and to various sort of digital formats. So I kind of had the best of both worlds.
Yeah. What's your sort of inspiration, or who did you, when you started out on your production design journey, who's your inspiration? Who did you look to get you going?
Well, it's an interesting question, because I guess I've often looked to other women as inspiration in my life, and in New Zealand, I mean, it's very much a male-dominated field, production design, and there was really only one guy in New Zealand who was, well, really still is. There weren't really many. It's always good if you can see yourself in terms of your career trajectory. But I guess just because of the culture that it was, and pretty much still is, although it is changing. I sort of looked at mostly European film. I've always been a big fan of European cinema, particularly French, and Eastern European cinema.
Yeah.
And, it has such a strong tradition of design. So I looked at designers like Alexander Trauner, who was a sort of Polish, French production designer who designed a lot of those early studio films and ended up with productions. Yeah, just anything that involves sort of craft. It's so important, I think, when you're studying, to sort of have models of really good craft, really good screen craft.
Yeah, because when I figured out what you did, it took me a while, and since then,
people
in
the film industry don't know production design.
Yeah, well, that would be my next question. It was for people who weren't au fait with what a production designers did, because when I look at films now and I look at it through through your eyes an appreciation of what it does, and it's almost like a third character in the design and the look and the tone of the film, and how it's so important on the end product, I think. So what would you say if someone was asking you, what does a production designer do exactly?
Well, look, in broad terms, the production designer is the head of the art department, which is the department responsible for the visual narrative, and the production designer works very closely with the director and cinematographer to develop the film. And that means different things, of course, for different projects and different budget levels. But essentially, at its most simple version, it can be designing something that's on location, so it's not a set that's actually built, but it's conceptualizing the whole look of the film based on the script. And designing environments for characters, overseeing the palette and all the various sections within the art department, which include things like props buyers, set dressers, painters, builders.
It's a massive job.
It's a massive job. I mean, my art department at the moment is about 120 people.
About 120 people.
And that covers sort of. Yeah, that covers construction, greens, painters, set decoration department of buyers, props buyers, set dressers, and then props makers, graphic designers, set designers, drafts people, and then all my team of art directors. And that's a fairly sort of large project, but by no means the largest sort of scale. I mean, on big American films, you can have, anywhere up to sort of 300 people in the art department. It's usually the largest department on a film, and so therefore has the lion's share of the budget. So, yeah, it's essentially the visual department, I suppose. And it's different, I think, in Australia and New Zealand because we don't have a strong tradition of studio filmmaking as they do in America and Europe. So, I think just by virtue of that, there's a general probably filmmakers as well in terms of the craft of production design in Europe and America, because they make so many films in studio, and they have done, for since last century. Whereas Australia and New Zealand, we tend to have smaller budgets, we tend to work on location, which is by no means less in terms of craft, but it's very obvious when you see a set built in studio what a production designer and what an art department's actually doing.
So our listeners will know of you through the current film that's showing at the screening room in Masterton is Ladies in Black, which is we've both been to see it.
Yes,
we loved it.
Really enjoyed it.
So that's the Bruce Beresford production from the Madeline St. John. Is that how you say it? St. John book. Can you talk us through, because that was a set you had to recreate 1950s Australia and a department store, which I had the privilege of seeing when I visited you in Australia, which was amazing because I'd never been on a film set, and so you had to build the whole department on Fox Studios. Is that right?
Yeah, we in the novel, which is the screenplay, is pretty closely adapted from the novel, which is sort of set in a fictional David Jones, which is an Australian department store, which I think is now in.
It is in Wellington, yeah.
Yeah, so it was sort of a fictional David Jones in Sydney in the summer of 1959, and so we had to recreate. We built the department store itself at Fox Studios in Australia, as you said, in Sydney, and there were various other character sets, and we also did film actually on the 7th floor of David Jones, which we recreated the ground floor of the department store with the view out to a Sydney street circa 1959. So, as anyone who's worked on period film knows, trying to recreate period in a sort of large contemporary city, is quite a challenge in itself. You don't want your horses on a cover that's not the period. Yeah, but look, that was it's a great project, I think, because, department stores in themselves are such universal things, and I'm not an Australian. I obviously brought up in Wellington and, took my inspiration from going to James Smith's as a kid, with Nana and Granddad.
That's right.
And going up the rickety old one single lane escalator that sort of wooden thing that rattled its way up to the second floor. But that's what I love about the film. It's so universal. I mean, it is Australian and it's very particular to Australian culture, but it's also universal and far-reaching because it's a story about women, and it's, and everyone has an experience of a department store if they've ever been to a city or grown up in a city or visited one as a child. I think it's something that everyone can sort of relate to.
I went to see it with Mum and Dad, and we were at the old age pensioners screening. I got a special dispensation to attend.
No.
And we were just surrounded by women of that era, and one thing that struck them was when they saw it, this immersed in the whole, it took them back, and they were just remembering all the fashions and all the are you still with us, Felicity?
I am, yeah, just come back.
Oh.
Bit of feedback. All right. No, we're back on.
Yes, and they loved the way that it had just sent them straight back to the era. So when you get onto a project initially, and I guess you work really closely with the director and the cinematographer, would you, as a production designer? What's your process? Like, how do you approach projects? Is there a particular way that you approach each project, or how does it work for you?
Well, look, I guess research is such a huge part of the design process, regardless of the period or the genre of a film. And, I happen to have done a lot of different work in different periods, especially when I was living in Australia. So, that is a particular kind of discipline in itself. But luckily with this particular project, it's amazing. I kind of think how do people actually make films before the internet, because it's such a kind of incredible resource, for an art department, because it's all about research really, and there's these kind of incredible archives on the internet that people have put together of department stores, particularly in North America and Europe, and so you can pretty much, trawl that for incredible inspiration of department stores of the period. And the whole concept of model gowns and ladies' cocktail, which is, very much, it's where the story is set, these women working together in model gowns and ladies' cocktail fifth floor fashions, and the model gowns itself. Most exclusive department stores had a model gowns section, and these were really like the car showrooms of fashion of the period, and where women went and sort of sat there and smoked and drank tea and and watched house models parade couture fashion, and then ordered whatever they wanted in their own sort of size, and it was made. So there were no racks of clothes and model gowns. It was a very sort of exclusive couture showroom, as opposed to ladies' cocktail, which is sort of more the high end ready to wear fashion. So there were some amazing references of stores around the world that had these kind of model gowns, and so I sort of, it was partly dictated to by the architect.
We've lost you a little bit. I think maybe if you could turn your video off, Felicity. Oh, hello. Are you there, Felicity? We just lost you for a bit. I wondered, could you turn your video off? Just maybe.
I have.
Oh, you have. Well done. Thank you. We just lost you a little bit.
So you're talking about it's up to what the director, were you saying?
Look, everything is inspired by the script first and foremost, and the director's vision sort of points you in the right direction. And in the case of fashion, it's for this film, I worked very closely with a costume designer, and probably more so than any other job I've ever done in my career, because it overlaps because it's about fashion, and people probably don't realise, but basically anything that's a dress on a mannequin is my responsibility, whereas everything that's a dress on a human is the costume designer's responsibility. So I had to educate myself about fashion of the period, and it was my set decorator and myself spent months literally trying to track down, because we had to have an enormous amount of couture on the mannequins in the set that sort of turned over quite a lot over a sort of month period while we were shooting. And that was our responsibility to find, because it's not strictly a costume.
So you had some genuine period pieces in the film?
Yeah, look, it's one of the sort of tricky things with filmmaking that there's a lot of clearance involved, and fashion houses don't tend to like dealing with films too much because they have no editorial control over what you do. So, and essentially, if you put an object in front of camera and then you have to clear it. You have to get sort of legal clearance for it. So we ended up doing some creative things like making dresses in the style of a particular designer, but with our own fabric and our own sort of modifications. So you're not, you're not strictly. And then we also purchased quite a few couture pieces out of the US, out of some Hardy Amy's, which was the designer, and a really nice Elizabeth Arden gown from the 1950s, and they were sort of kind enough to clear. The fashion house was kind enough to clear that for us, so we could use it in a film, so that Joy Ormond, who played Magda, could sort of point at it and talk about it and reference it in the film, and we could put a sign in front of it. Otherwise it's very complicated because you can't legally sort of put a Christian Dior dress on a mannequin and sort of put a sign in front of it without the legal permission of that company.
Oh gosh, I always wonder why there's so many credits at the end of a film, but so the legal department's quite massive. Because they have to do all those clearances for you, and if you don't, you need an art department to create, because for the goods department store and Ladies in Black you made all your own boxes and wrappings and everything, didn't you?
We did we branded the whole department store because it was a fictional store, but Beresford, the director, he was, because it's in some sense it's his period. I mean, he was alive at the time, so was the producer Sue Millican, and Bruce is very particular about period detail, so he wanted in all the houses real products, real products and real things, and he as do I, but you really want it to have that sense of authenticity. So we had to clear things like Weet-Bix and Sunlight Soap and Vegemite and all the products that were around in Sydney in that period. So so where we can, we sort of use real things, and where we can't, we tend to make up our own graphic for them.
Amazing. So you're when you're working on set, like what's it like being on set? Like, you have to be there from sun up to sundown. I know production designing probably is not necessarily as glamorous as something else in the I don't know, as being an actor or something, because it sounds like a lot of hard work involved. What's the day-to-day on set if you're on location? What's life like as a production designer?
Me personally, I'm not usually on set a great deal. Production designers are usually, I mean, I'm always there for a handover of a set if it's a new set.
Yeah.
But then I have, otherwise we're sort of running ahead of the shooting crew, so preparing the next thing. So I don't usually spend a great deal of time on set. I have on-set representatives. There's usually an on-set art director and someone called a staff props, who is the art department representative that's with the director and the cinematographer the whole time. And they're sort of, checking the monitor and making sure everything's kind of set up properly, and then we have an on-set dresser. So we have people that are always on the shoot crew from our department, but myself and the decorator are usually sort of running ahead, getting the next thing ready, or doing a million things at once. So look, day to day could be anything really. It's there's usually just about hundreds of questions to answer and plans to sign off on and graphics to look at, and I mean, it's never boring, that's for sure.
No.
It's glamorous. There's no drama whatsoever for anyone who's listening who's thinking about a career in the art department. Heaps of fun, no glamour.
How do you personally organise yourself for a day? Because clearly you've got stuff coming from all directions. Is there a standard way of kind of managing your time and managing your availability and managing that stress, maybe?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I think for myself, I studied meditation when I was at film school to cope with the stress of doing a master's, and it's really, I think it's got me through the last sort of 15 years of my career, and it certainly, I think, helps me enormously focus and deal with the day-to-day pressures of of filmmaking, which are, considerable. It's certainly not a career for the faint-hearted.
No.
But if you like adventure and constant change and complete instability and uber stress, then it's a really exciting career.
It's like you have to be a bit nomadic, don't you? Because you go where, if you're on doing exterior shoots and things, you're out and about, and you do a lot of location scouting. Is that part of your role too?
Yeah, look, you just have to go where the work is. I mean, it's essentially, I think if you want an international career, which I certainly did, you do have to go where the work is to a certain degree, and also, if you want to work on larger scale productions, it's really, New Zealand's sort of fortunate in that a lot of bigger American things often shoot here, but then they'll often bring in American production designers rather than locals. So, look, for me, I love travel and I love the adventure of it. So for me, it's exciting and challenging to sort of turn up in a new country or a new city and have to work with people I've never met before. Yeah. That is a challenge in itself. And I remember joking to someone once saying, production designer really is like sort of, one part psychology and one part sort of finance manager and the other part creative. It's such a mixture of strange things, and just by virtue of doing becomes weird and some random thing like First World War tanks. Just because you're project and you sort of have to do all this research, and then suddenly you know everything about it, and then you're looking for it for the next year, even though the job's over. You keep seeing them everywhere.
With that, Lucy here again, Felicity. With that element of research, there must be a point where you kind of go, right, I've got enough to now create the thing that we need for this film. Is it sometimes hard to stop going down rabbit holes of research? I imagine you have to be incredibly disciplined to, stay on task and not get fascinated by, specifics of World War tanks, if, a specific of a World War One tank wasn't necessary.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think for myself, now that I'm sort of 30 credits on in my career, your intuition tells you a lot of things, and if you listen to that, I find my intuition tells me when I've saturated my research, and you tend to know because you start to sort of get the same images repeat, especially if you're going through if you're going through archives or libraries or sort of online or otherwise, you tend to, once you're saturated, you tend to start getting the same images crop up. So especially for period work, so that's when you've sort of done a full pass on it. And there's always times where you have to go back and sort of look at something in a bit more detail, but generally speaking, and it's a funny thing because you're not paid generally for that research time, but you really can't do your job without it, and you never get enough preparation time, paid preparation time on a film. But the design is only as good as the research, particularly for period. So it's that catch-22. And then of course, if you're given a great script like Ladies in Black, a year out from, and the thing's not even financed, it's pretty hard to sort of not start researching it. Which I did. Bruce gave me the script when I was doing an opera with him in 2016 and sort of said, if the film gets funding, I'll get you to design it. And, that's a sort of tempting proposition in itself. But of course, as anyone in the film industry knows, projects come and go every day. And, as Ladies in Black has taken Bruce and Sue, something like 20 years to actually finance. No one was actually interested in backing the film. When they first started to make it, and, he told me ridiculous stories about they had Monica Bellucci and I think Isabella Rossellini attached to it at one stage, and no one was interested because I guess the times have changed now, thankfully, and
Oh, we've lost you again, Felicity. I hope you come back. Come back.
Film finance that didn't think it would be.
Oh, sorry, we lost you again a little bit there, Felicity.
You had Monica Bellucci.
Yeah,
and no one was on board.
It's a story that Bruce likes to tell, but it just shows you how much times have changed. That now it's considered, thank goodness, a film essentially about the relationships between women in that time is now considered worthwhile to make. And, of course, audiences are flocking to it, and it's done very well in Australia, and I believe it's doing very well in New Zealand. So,
yeah. Lots of people I know have seen it and loved it. It's
delicious storytelling. I felt so invested in all the characters, and there was a moment. There was a moment in the film where I thought, I felt like I knew so much about these people. I knew there was so much more of their story to be told. And I thought, I don't know if we're going to have time to tell it all. But it was amazing how it all resolved really neatly, and it was just the length it needed to be. It was a great experience, and it's nice to have that considered storytelling and to feel so safe within that environment, because it did look so authentic. It was a great experience. Did you want to have a quick break for music?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's Felicity sent us an amazingly comprehensive playlist of things that had, I know the Doobie Brothers was from Our Father, is that right? Yeah. And now, what would you like to play from your list, Felicity? Anything?
There's a very nice track from the soundtrack to Brand New Day, which was the first feature that I ever designed, Australian film, Indigenous musical, directed by Rachel Perkins.
That was the one thing I couldn't find on Spotify.
Oh.
It is an amazing song, though.
Can we have another one? Oh, we just missed you there again, Felicity. Did you have another suggestion?
You choose.
What about, I know you're a big fan growing up. We used to listen to
Oh, well, I picked that for you, PM Dawn.
That's right. I haven't got that either. Let's put on Poirier, because that was a good one. What was your inspiration behind that? Poirier, Patea Murray Club.
Oh, look, well, that's just a classic, really.
Oh, it is. It's one of my favourites.
Whack it on, Lucy.
All right, I'm doing it.
It's just absolute genius, I think. And I recently in Los Angeles, where I'm now living, there was a documentary that screened at the Pacific Oceanic Film Festival, which was about the making of. Have you seen that here? It's an absolutely brilliant documentary about Dalvanius and Poirier and the Patea Murray Club and making of the video, and they've remastered the song for the film, and it screened to a packed audience in Los Angeles, which was actually full of New Zealanders amongst others, but it was a great thing.
Oh, well, let's have that, and when we come back, we'll talk about your shift to Los Angeles and how that's tracking your career.
Okay. was great. I sound like I've been running. I just sat down. Welcome back. You're listening to ReCooper8 with me, Lucy Cooper, and Katie Abbott, and the wonderful Felicity Abbott is on the Skype connection, and we have been grilling her about what it's like to be a production designer. And I'm sitting here thinking, right, so resource management planning isn't looking as attractive as it did on Friday. It really is. It's got everything to it, hasn't it? Yeah. Oh, sorry, I haven't turned your mic on. Oh. I do apologise. Okay,
just sitting here talking to myself. Felicity, so you made the move recently, or in the last year, to Los Angeles from Australia. So how's that been? What was it like landing on those shores? What's it been like since then, with changes in your career?
Look, it was sort of a bit of an eye-opener, to be honest, and because I'd never spent any time in the US. I spent all my time going between Europe and Australia, in terms of work. And to be honest, I felt I was really surprised, because there are a lot of great things about. Obviously, there's a lot of problematic things about the US, particularly the government. Many things. But in terms of the film industry, it was a real eye-opener for me, I think, because for the first time in my life, I felt like I was part of a majority. Because, Los Angeles, in terms of the infrastructure, I mean, it's all about the film industry. And you really get the sense that you're in a very big, healthy industry, and whereas Australia and New Zealand are sort of tiny by comparison, and I really felt like I had some great opportunities in Australia, but I felt like I'd sort of, I needed to sort of make a move in order to sort of crack the next budget level and sort of, continue to sort of develop as a designer, because there's only so much you can do, at a certain level. So. And so I mean, it's been really great in that sense, just having access to filmmakers, and I feel like I'm back at film school again, because every night of the week there's just any number of screenings and filmmakers talking about their work with actors, and I find that incredibly inspiring. It's really like a giant kind of film school.
Must be amazing. And you went to Los Angeles on the back of working on Upgrade, which is a sci-fi film with Lee Winnell. Is that how you pronounce his name? Winnell?
Yeah. Expat Australian who's been in Los Angeles for a long time now.
Yeah. And because your versatility is clear by all the different types of work of your back catalogue. I mean, you've done period pieces, you've done Brand New Day, musicals, you've worked with Blackfella Films on Red Fern Now, which is another wonderful piece of television. It's on Netflix currently in New Zealand, I believe. So Upgrade was a different genre for you. You were tackling sci-fi, and looks like you were given the opportunity to create a whole new world. How was that for you, tackling? Was it a bigger budget as well? And is bigger budget necessarily better? There's a lot of questions in there. They're all sorry. There was a lot of questions in there. I got excited.
They're all really interesting questions. I mean, Upgrade for me was amazing. Like, it was a real game changer, to be honest. And I did it for many reasons. I mean, I guess I should say firstly that I'm definitely not. I was probably definitely not the first choice to design a film like that. And when I was interviewed by Lee, I think I had about 3 interviews, and I sort of did a big pitch for him. I did a sort of big design presentation, which is not unusual when you're interviewing. You pretty much have to, pitch your design for the film. But I was probably up against 5 other production designers, and a lot of men who'd done a lot more feature work than me and a lot more work in that genre. But one of the things I really admire about Lee, and he was very clear about this, he wanted a very distinct voice for Upgrade and for the look of the film, and he didn't want something that had been done before. And I remember he sort of mocked me when he interviewed me, because I'd never seen RoboCop. In fact, In fact, I think I let slip that I'd never seen Star Wars either, which he just thought was outrageous. But then I have seen THX 1138 about 100-something times, George Lucas's first film.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and he sort of has joked in press interviews since that one of the reasons he gave me a job was because I wasn't sort of coming to it with the usual sort of, the default references that maybe another designer would who'd worked in that genre. And I remember I joked to some of my colleagues about a year before that. I was like, well, I'd really like to do a sci-fi, but, it just seemed like blokes always got those jobs. And, yeah, so I was absolutely thrilled when Lee gave me the job. And, and he really wanted, he really embraced the different kind of vision that I wanted to bring to it. And we worked very closely together to sort of develop this idea of that was quite sculptural and beautiful. And I mean, I think and a lot of the feedback from Upgrade has been this, that it has a very different look from a lot of those genre films. So yeah, look, it was a fantastic experience for me because that the future you get to design everything, so it's amazing. I mean, you got to design guns and cars and sort of weapons and houses and pretty much everything. It was kind of really interesting. I mean, huge challenge because it wasn't that big a budget for what it was. The ambitions were far greater than the actual resources. I mean, as usual.
Well, I was wondering about that, because is a bigger budget necessarily better? Because sometimes constraints force you to be more creative. Have you found that when you were early in your career working with smaller budgets and smaller productions?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I mean, I think it's good. It's good up to a point. I mean, as I said, I had fantastic opportunities in Australia, particularly in television. I think production on a television is a really good way to train, and it's a very good way to develop your craft because, television's intense. It's a fast turnover. It's sort of high demand. And, you often get to do a lot more than you would in a sort of low-budget feature environment. But, then at a certain point, like for me, I just want to build things. I love designing and building sets and creating worlds and designing different environments. So, and to do that, you sort of need a bigger budget level. So, but there is a certain level which, there's a certain level probably around 50 million where the creative control is taken out of the hands of the creatives at sometimes. And, so Lee wanted to make this film at a certain budget level so that he was able to keep creative control, which was very important as a writer-director. So, yeah, look, it's, greater money bigger budgets bring greater opportunity, but they also bring other challenges, particularly if they're studio films. Yeah.
So what's next? What other genre would you like to have a crack at? Do you want to continue on the sci-fi route or big budget? What's in your sights?
I mean, I just find it all really fascinating. I mean, there's nothing that I wouldn't, wouldn't try. I mean, I'd love to do more sci-fi. I'd love to do an action film. I'd love to do a Bond film.
Oh,
I'd love to do a Western.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing.
I mean, there's no greater satisfaction, I think, than working with a great bunch of people on a great script and kind of bringing it to life. It's an absolute joy and thrill, and I love the creative challenge of it. I just hope that I get to continue. I mean, I've been lucky enough to do some really great projects. They haven't all been sort of big budget things by any means, but with creatively significant and culturally significant projects. So I really hope that I can continue doing things like that while extending myself as a designer, because you're always learning, and I hope that I hope that never stops.
We hope so too.
Oh, absolutely.
Off the back of what I've seen so far, I'm feeling confident.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you and for you to, so generously give up your time to walk us through that process. And I think if there's any young people out there and you've got your time, do what she does.
Do a career change.
Totally. Oh, it sounds amazing. I hope you come back on again. And next time we won't be so flustered because we'll know how all the buttons here work.
And we can talk more in depth about the luminaries, maybe.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me. It's always nice to have the opportunity to talk about the craft, and thanks very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Felicity.
That's brilliant. See you soon.
Bye.
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 Wasn't it insightful?
Oh, you've got the best sister, Evs.
Yeah.
Apart from my sister who's listening, I hope. You're brilliant too. Now, our next guest has arrived.
Right.
But while
Should we take a musical interlude?
we could take a musical interlude, and then I would like to play my interview with Jade Waitford, chair of Te Tuki, who was just a very compelling person to listen to, and who has helped with others to create a really magnificent resource here in Masterton. Te Tuki is the Māori Arts Centre and has already done great things in the 4 years that it's been around, and now it's got a permanent home on Queen Street, which is well worth dropping into and just checking out and seeing what's going on. I really, it looks like they're going to go from strength to strength. So we'll play a musical interlude, and then we'll hear from her, and then we will have a lovely chat with Peter Buggs.
Lovely. Let's listen to Lucy from the film Upgrade, which Felicity worked on, the original motion picture soundtrack from Jed Palmer. It's called A Better Place.
Better Place. I can see it right here, madam. Yes.
Lovely.
1 second. That's because I've pressed the wrong button.
Come on, Lucy.
Jeez, honestly. I mean, it doesn't rain, but it pours. Hang on 1 second. Right, turn that one on. I don't even know what that button does. Right. It's better. Well, that track was A Better Place by Jed Palmer, and that was right up my street. I love that. And that was inspired by our interview with Felicity Abbott, who has just been spending the last 45 minutes with us talking about her role as a production designer, most recently on Ladies in Black, and prior to that, Upgrade, which I think is on Netflix, and I think it's very well worth a watch. I've not seen it yet, but people I've spoken to have said that it's very well worth a watch, and keep your eye out now for production design, because you now know that there's a whole genius person behind it, and an incredible team. You're listening to ReCooper8 with me, Lucy Cooper, and we're into the second hour, and I'm very pleased that we managed to negotiate the new locks on the door, and I have Peter Biggs in the studio. Hello.
Kia ora, good evening.
Kia ora, lovely to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we are going to be talking at length with Peter, but first of all, what I wanted to do, just while we all settle down, I'm finding that we need lots of kind of meditative breaks in this first show in the new studio, because I easily get overwhelmed. So I thought what we'd do is just quickly play my interview with Jade Waitford, who is the chair of Te Pa Tuki Tuki, and have a listen. And I think I've never interviewed anybody, I think, that I pointed the microphone at Jade and I said, we're going to talk about, you and this place. And for 7 minutes, she just spoke so eloquently and so beautifully. It was really compelling. I was kind of mesmerised. So this, I didn't even have to edit, because Jade just, her heart and soul is in this project, and it's a pretty incredible story. So here we are. This is my interview with Jade, and then we'll come straight back to a full studio. It'll be me, Katie and Peter, and we're going to while away the next hour.
Kia ora, ko Jade Waitford toku ingoa. He uri o no ngā hauewha, engari e noho ana au kei konei ki te whakaoriori. I'm one of the whānau here of Te Pa Tuki Tuki o Wairarapa. We started about 4 years ago of a project to restore a carving at Te Kura Kaupapa Māori o Wairarapa. And through that restoration, it revived, the culture and the carving culture, but also it revived a feeling within our community, especially among the men of all ages, to come and participate in the community project. So we formed a trust around it and thought that this was something that the community, we realised it was something the community needed, and so over the years we've volunteered our time and love and energy for this beautiful community that we live in. We see so much potential in them and know how many artists there are out there that are hiding, doing their thing, and probably a little bit disconnected. So Te Pa Tuki Tuki was born. Te Pa Tuki Tuki means the beating of the chisel on the wood of carving, but it also means the beating heart. It's the kind of beat in your heart that you get when you're excited or you feel really good about something or you're in love. And we felt that this was really a fitting name for what we were creating. We wanted a new heartbeat in the Wairarapa, one that spreads happiness and pride and culture and identity to this place, Masterton and Whakaoriori. So from that, with weaving, with carving, there's always weaving attached to that. So raranga was a natural part of our project, and so we supply a space here, provide a space for weavers to come and be with one another and to create together. So we've had a number of different workshops over the years, and another one that came through was about our want to be guardians of our rivers that are crying and screaming out to us really for help, and we've answered that call as kaitiaki, as guardians, not just of the rivers but also of the arts, and ensuring that it gets passed over correctly. There's no shortcutting, and every step is properly explored. So part of our kaitiaki is around raising awareness for the rivers in the Wairarapa, in particular looking after them so that our freshwater species can continue to live and create biodiversity in the waters, and so that our whānau can enjoy the lifestyle that they've always known here, which is to be connected to the rivers, eat from there, live there and breathe there and be part of it. So weaving, again, back to that, just down from us at Waipawa, all along the Waipoa were grand pā harakeke, so grand sites of lovely harakeke to weave with, which are no longer there. And we hope to revive a group to be kaitiaki of the pā harakeke around Masterton to care for them and to make sure they carry on so that the weaving continues also, but just again to create that biodiversity and bring the birds back singing. Here at Te Pā Tukituki 15 Queen Street, we've we haven't cut the name, but we feel that Te Pā is it also means to connect. So we want people to understand their connection to this place and space in Masterton, and so we do that through different wānanga, connecting people to their maunga, their awa, their ancestry, wherever they're from, through the medium of toi Māori, through carving, painting, weaving, and also rongoa. So rongoa is rongoa can be felt anywhere. It's that feeling of healing, where you feel like you're healing in a space. So on a Thursday night we have a Ora healing clinic, and it's a clinic where people can access healers at a heavily discounted price. So it's $20 session for half an hour, and they get to walk out feeling amazing. But we also build a spirit of community within that to help support other practitioners also. So with that, we serve rongoa from the bush. So we we go and harvest different leaves that are tonics for the body, and so we serve that here in our space. But it's been a project of our hearts, really, in that we hold the pulse here, because we've had lots of different whānau come and go, and we really don't want the heartbeat to stop, so we've stayed, and we feel very grateful and humbled to be able to place an entrance now, a carved entrance on our whare this morning, that represents both iwi, so kahungunu tane, both communities, Māori and Pākehā alike. And we've chosen Hine Nui Te Pō as the atua, so she's the goddess of the afterlife, and it's who we all go back to. But it also, we've painted the front of our space in black, which is a really sacred colour. Within that colour are all the colours of the rainbow, so it represents all people, bloodline. It's also a protective colour, because this work requires protection and guardianship, and so do our people. And so we really love that we've been able to be supported by Masterton District Council, by Masterton Trustlands Trust, and by Tū Mai Rā, who have recently supported us in our art ventures, as well as the wonderful people, the beautiful people of Whakaoriori who come in and offer their time and energy. That's us. Yeah.
Well, that was Jade Whiteford, and I love talking to her.
That was wonderful, Lucy. You really got a sense of what the day was like. Lots of vibrant people around, and children making noise and art.
Definitely. And I think the weather played its part as well. It would have been quite a different experience, I think, had it been, windy or cold. People would have been hurrying from thing to thing, but everybody had that kind of relaxed beginning of the long holiday kind of, long weekend vibe. And I think they'd had quite a tremendous day that day at Te Pā, as we're also allowed to call it, because they'd kind of officially opened their facility, and so their day had started at 6 a.m. With various festivities, and then they opened their doors, and then there was Sieve there kind of starting up her open life air. It was just a great day, really lovely day. And so on my day I just went round with my recorder capturing stories, and it was really neat to kind of geographically and audially kind of do that. It was pretty neat, and everybody was so friendly. And usually when you say, I'd like to record, would you like to have it? No, I don't. I'm not going to say anything, but everybody said, yeah, sure, I will. So it was pretty cool. Enough, Lucy, enough. Peter Biggs, hello.
Hello.
It's great.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. So lovely to have you here. It's always nice when we get an email on the ReCooper8 email. I only get Twitter notifications, but Mary, your lovely partner, I understand 34 years married yesterday.
Yes, thank you.
She
emailed
and she said, Featherstone Booktown has kind of hit another level, which we'll get to. But I thought, Peter, would you mind just kind of giving us an idea and the listeners an idea of what Booktown is, how it began, and take us back to the roots.
I will. I'd be happy to. I'm just having very strange flashbacks sitting in the studio. I was a DJ on Radioactive in the 1980s, so I'm just getting pictures of myself, and I could never work. Well, I could never work the equipment properly, and
that's me.
Yeah,
Snap.
and they were wonderfully patient. Nick Marmholt, who was the head of the station at the time, would always come in and rescue me, and then I did the political hour on Tuesday nights between 7 and 8. And at 8 o'clock on the dot, the Lesbian Women Make Music hour began. And if I went a minute over time, they'd sort of stare through the glass at me like this and intimidate me terribly. So I'd be out quickly. But all sorts. It was a wonderful station, still is. But all sorts. John Campbell did some time on Radioactive. Lots of Dan Slevin. Wonderful writer and publisher in the Wellington region, all did that on Radioactive. So I'll just keep flashbacking and talk about Featherstone Booktown.
It can be your apocalypse now.
Yeah. Well, the Booktown movement began in the 1960s with Hay on Wye, and has grown now to be a 22 town. In a number of countries around the world movement. And it's basically a small rural community, usually with some historic kind of interest and heritage, often having fallen, once been prosperous as a town, having fallen a bit on hard times. And then a group of people get together and say, let's become a book town and start celebrating the artefact and the magic of the book. And a wonderful Featherstone resident, in fact, our neighbour Lincoln Gould, had this idea about 5 years ago and said, why don't we make Featherstone New Zealand's first book town? And as usually happens, I don't think politicians or governments move things forward much. I just think really, really committed, driven, passionate people kind of get together and make things happen. And so a small group of us got together in Featherstone to hold the first book town, and we held our first book town in 2015, and we got 2,000 people and thought this is going well. And we had our fourth one this year, and our fifth one in May will take place next year, and the program's looking to be a wonderfully exciting program, and we've gone from 2,000 people over a weekend to 5,000. So it's been a wonderful story, not just for Booktown, but for the community of Featherstone, who actually own Booktown.
Yes.
We couldn't do it without that wonderful community in Featherstone, particularly the volunteers. So it's been a wonderful thing for Featherstone and for the community.
Definitely. And I think you're absolutely right about Featherstone. It's got a unique kind of vibe and energy to it. Often, I used to live there, and people would tend to think that Featherstone got a little bit overlooked. But I don't think when you lived in Featherstone you felt like that at all, because everywhere you look there's people doing and making, and the friendliness of the place is overwhelming. So that very first book town, did you have great expectations? Were you just hoping to get a rung on the ladder, foot on the ladder? And
we had no idea. Dear Kate Mead, who's one of the trustees, was the first operations director, and as a board, Lincoln was the chair at that stage, and we put together the program. We supported Kate as much as possible. We raised a bit of money, and we went for it. And we had the first fish and chip supper, which has now become a legendary thing on the Friday night. This year, 200 people had individually made fish and chip meals, and to Goldie speak about a wonderful speech about children and young adult writing. But the first one we had it at Tararika, and it was full, and the events were full, and so it just built from there really. And the booksellers came, which was fantastic. So we got 10 booksellers in the first year, and now we attract about 13 or 14 booksellers, and There was one bookshop in Featherston in 2015, and now there are six.
Six.
Yes.
So this
That's
is very
incredible.
exciting.
Right.
Very exciting.
Wow.
And the community has got fabulously behind it, and we've been contacting writers, and all of them want to come to Featherston Booktown. I mean, Dame Fiona Kidman agreed on the spot. Yes, she'd love to come. A lot of writers who were at this year's Featherston Booktown are begging us to come back. In fact, a number of them have said it's the least pretentious and the most friendly kind of book festival or literary festival they've ever been invited to.
Yes.
So we had special memories of this year. It was terrific. Every event, ticketed event, was sold out.
God, that's great.
And we could have run events twice over.
Yeah.
So so we feel very, very privileged, but also we feel a great responsibility to Featherston and the community to keep this thing going and growing. And we've got younger people coming through on the board now. Sam Ducker-Jones, the poet, Featherston resident, and he's a sculptor, wonderful chap. Sam has joined the board. And so that's another dimension of thinking and contribution to the board, and also sustainability of the board. So we're trying to refresh and keep innovating as we go.
That's a great idea. Yes, and so something you have achieved. You have achieved another thing very recently. It was in the title of the email from Mary. I understand you are now a full member of the International Organisation of Booktowns.
We are. So we're
Tremendous.
we're the 23rd member.
Oh, okay.
Which is thrilling, really. We had to go to Clunes Booktown in Victoria. Clunes, much like Featherston, it's about an hour and a bit outside Melbourne. Once a wealthy town, as Featherston was. Clunes through gold, Featherston through all sorts of things, really. Agriculture, rail, manufacturing. And then Clunes, like Featherston, fell a bit on hard times. Very strong community. And 10 years ago, they decided to become a book town, and it's been a wonderful success for Clunes. The rail line never went there, and now it does.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, it's a fabulous, vibrant community, and we've developed a very close relationship with Clunes. We've got a group of 19 of them coming to Booktown next year, and we send people every year. In fact, they took one of our young volunteers as an intern a couple of years back, and gave her an amazing experience.
Yeah.
So
what a wonderful sharing of ideas.
It is. And we've got the first ever Trans-Tasman Summit in Featherston early next year, when the Clunes board are coming over, meeting with our board, and we're going to look at how we can share and cooperate and learn from each other. And then in 2022, the International Organisation of Booktowns Global Conference is going to happen in Featherston, along with the AGM.
Exciting.
So
they'll be all coming into Featherston. So
to achieve your official status, was there certain things you had to meet? Criteria?
Yes, there were. We had to obviously have a track record of successful festivals, and then we sent a delegation to Clunes this year, because they hosted the IOB Global Conference and AGM, and we presented our case at the AGM. It was unanimously approved by acclamation on the spot, but some IOB members or chairs couldn't be there. So then they had to do the follow-up. So yes, we're thrilled about it. And so that's another international dimension for Featherston.
Yeah, absolutely. So what will that international status as well bring you? Because prior to that, were we kind of an unofficial book town?
We were kind of a prospective member.
Yeah.
So a full membership gives us voting rights, gives us, I guess, even more fully a place in that network. We're going to send a delegation at each individual's own cost, I hasten to add. To Sweden next year for the conference. There are so many things we can learn. And Sean Bithell, Diary of a Bookseller.
I've just finished that on audiobook.
It's
Brilliant.
Wonderful, isn't it? Dear Lincoln Gould, and booksellers. Lincoln's the chief executive of booksellers, brought him over for the booksellers conference, and Lincoln organised a Booktown event in Featherston with Sean presenting. It was packed out, and so Sean is based in Wigtown, which is the Scottish Booktown. So I'm going to pop across next year to have a look at Wigtown again. 20 years Booktown's been going in Wigtown, and Wigtown was a small
story, very hard times.
Very similar story. Nobody came much to Wigtown, and now I think it's a 10-day festival.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, Clunes
A
gets
friend of mine's just done her OE, and one of her stops was she wanted to go and see, because Sean's bookshop is incredible.
Right.
Apparently.
Have a look at it on YouTube and Facebook. It's
even
terrific.
like the entrance is, he's got carved marble book sculptures in the entrance, and just everything about it is brilliant and imposing. But it was definitely on her tour, which I thought was brilliant.
Yeah, well, and Clunes is a great story. They get 20,000 people. I don't know how many Wigtown to get, but they're full. I've tried to book already. It's a year away for next year, and it's really hard to get in.
Gosh.
And the program, this year's program, looked terrific. So this whole magic of I guess literature, but I guess the arts. Yeah. Bringing people together, regenerating communities, making communities distinctive is a very powerful thing, and it's a privilege to be part of that.
Do you think a town that has a new economic life based on books or the arts develops in a different way from a town that gets its boost in kind of more capitalist ways? I don't know, I'm phrasing, but I'm thinking like Booktown so perfectly fits with Featherston. It's the two are just a match made in heaven, and that kind of sense of unpretentiousness, that sense of being able to create and do, and that kind of community energy, like the two just fit together really nicely. You wouldn't like and it kind of sits nicely with their ethos, with the community's ethos. And I'm wondering if that kind of, you said Clunes now has a railway line, it didn't before, but still you're still maintaining an arts focus, which has kind of got a nice, soft, caring edge to it. Do you know what I mean?
Look, no, absolutely. And I think this notion of how a community comes together around an artistic endeavour, which ultimately is a community endeavour, because people make art. And people make up communities, and people working together make strong communities. So I think it's a different dynamic. I mean, I've argued very, very strongly for a long time, as Katie knows, when I chaired the Arts Council, that the arts are infrastructure. There is much infrastructure as roads, rail lines, and everything else. And it's a dreadful shame that as a country we're not investing more in the arts, particularly from central government. I'm hoping this government, like Helen Clark's government, will be visionary and generous in terms of investing in artistic infrastructure, because it's the infrastructure of the heart and the soul and the mind, which all of them are equally important, along with more traditional infrastructure. And we've, I must say, had wonderful support from the South Wairarapa District Council and the various entities through the Wairarapa Trust House and others, because but essentially what makes these things happen are the vision and energy and commitment of people.
Yes.
And it's been wonderful to have the South Wairarapa District Council and other organisations, creative communities, as enablers of people wanting to do something for the community and something for the region. And now the trick becomes and I'm going to have a chat to David Headley about this. He's a wonderful man, David, about what do we do in this wonderful valley, because there's so much going on in the literary space, and how do we stop cannibalising each other?
Right, yes.
And how do we start cooperating regionally for the betterment of everybody in this fabulous region. So that's the next step.
Yes.
Yarns and Barns and Booktown and the Carterton Book Fair and all of these amazing things that are going on. Kokomai, how do we all work together for the betterment of all of the different events and organisations, but ultimately for the Wairarapa and this regional community.
And it's that balancing act, isn't it, of our individual towns and communities retaining their individuality, because each town has such a unique flavour, yet collaborating effectively to share the resources we have, and to not have everything all happen on one weekend.
Well, that's right. That's exactly right. How do we complement each other by timing and by a different positioning, maybe even being part of each other in some way.
Yes. Yep.
Kokomai in our first year were very, very very helpful in terms of offering to help us with marketing.
Yes.
And included us in their program. So Heidi was wonderfully generous. So that's the other great thing I think about artistic endeavours, and I guess economies and communities built around artistic endeavours. Just it brings out the generosity, the wonderful generosity in people.
Yep.
And that's been a fabulous thing, not just in Featherston, but regionally wide, but also nationally. People, writers, publishers, booksellers want Featherston Booktown to succeed.
So next year's programme is shaping up?
Shaping up brilliantly well, and we've got some great names coming along. I think our biggest, and the board is wrestling with this, we're not going to be able to do it in one weekend. So we're going to have to look at some stage lengthening the time of the festival, whether it begins on the Thursday night and ends on the Sunday. The other issue that we're running into, which is a good problem to have, but it's a problem nevertheless, is the issue of venues.
Yes.
So I mean, coming down the track, I think we've got to look at, again, infrastructure, putting in place a venue in Featherston that can take 200 people. We've got the Anzac Hall, which is a wonderful venue, but that's where the booksellers are.
Yes, of course.
So, and True Stories Told, not True Stories Told Live, I'm sorry, the Fish and Chip Supper this year was at Tauhara in the Rose and Smith venue there, which took 200 people. But that's becoming 200 people plus now. True Stories Told Live on the Saturday night, we had to turn people away. We had over 100 people come along. We didn't expect it. So we're going to have to look at a solution to the venue problem.
Absolutely exciting.
Really exciting.
Yeah.
And again, the pressure to keep the Booktown Festival always fresh. And now, of course, Booktown stretches out through the year. So we have a year-round program now. So, for example, there was the Sean Bithell event in Featherston. We've got an Armistice Day event. We've got a panel of wonderful speakers with Gerald Hensley, ex-Secretary of Defence, as the moderator, talking about 1918 and the effect on New Zealand from the war, from World War One. So we're looking to have an event every couple of months.
Right, goodness.
Through the year. So and this year we collaborated with the International Festival of the Arts and had an event in Featherston.
Great.
In February. So it's been an exciting journey.
Yeah.
So from a weekend festival, it's now a year-long phenomenon, really.
Wonderful.
And it's wonderful that, in terms of making an argument for a venue, for example, that, you have this track record and that you're a real, a force to put forward and press forward for positive change in that way.
Yes.
And it's wonderful that it's coming from the arts sector and not and elsewhere.
Yes, and we shouldn't forget, we've got a very strong core program aimed at kids and young adults.
Yes.
I chair the New Zealand Book Council, and we've done research, and it's backed up international research, that if you can get kids reading, it's the most effective poverty buster around. So kids reading basically determines their social and economic success more than any other factor.
Right.
So we've been able every year to give Featherston kids book vouchers to go and get books with. So we're hoping to carry that on in every festival, just to never lose sight of the fact that the future of our healthy communities is getting kids reading and getting them to stay reading. And Book Council research shows that 500,000 New Zealanders don't pick up a book at all.
That many.
It's and a big number are young boys and young men.
Gosh.
So it's important to build a generation of readers. So Featherston Booktown and the Book Council have been enormously helpful with Featherston Booktown through their property True Stories Told Live. And I think this year we're looking at Speed Date an Author as
fabulous.
a program.
What does that involve?
Well, it's a program we've run as the Book Council for many years in schools. So you get a writer, you bring a real live top writer into a school, and basically they can ask the writer anything.
That's brilliant.
And now, of course, we're getting kids writing. As well as reading, but also Booktown's about the art of the artifact of the book. So there's book binding, there's printing.
You get is Bill Tito come, the book restorer? Has he ever come to any Booktown?
I think we've got him in mind for next year.
Oh, great!
Yeah,
he's fabulous.
Yes, he is.
Great storyteller too.
Yes,
I remember the last Booktown. My son, who's 7 now, but we took him to some of the children events, and it really engaged him, and he had a great time. I mean, he's a good reader anyway, but just to see the joy on their faces was just marvellous. And we taken him into Wellington a couple of school holidays ago for the the 39 story treehouse series, and the two Andys.
Yes. Yep.
And they were like rock stars. They filled the auditorium at Wellington
great?
High School, which is seats over 500.
Wow.
And absolutely packed, and the majority of them, I'd say, were young boys. They just engaged them so well. And if you can get people like that, done.
If you can, the miracle starts to work, really.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do a lot of work just in the youth justice area, and I went down to a youth justice facility earlier this year. My goodness, that makes you think about your own life and what goes on in this country. But as I left, the wonderful Tina Lomax, who runs Kingsley School and their facilities in the South Island, right through the North Island, I said, how can I help? And she said, books. And so Mary and I regularly send down books, and the lovely Jackie at Unity Books in Wellington. Jackie used to be a social worker. She chooses the books for us, and they're devoured by those kids. Wow. And, these are kids, they've done it tough, and they just want books. Yeah. And particularly the boys want predominantly non-fiction. Okay. And just as long as those boys read anything and get into the habit of reading a book, and holding a book and getting into the world of books, that's the trick. I should make mention too of our wonderful patron Joy Cowley. Yes. We have a superstar living
Featherston resident.
Yes, but in the Wairarapa we have an international superstar living very humbly, very modestly, but with great generosity. So Joy is our patron, and we got Joy to do some readings last year, and she is a rock star. I mean, we had to turn people away.
Gosh.
So we got Joy coming back this year, and then very generously she's offered to do a writer's workshop.
Oh, wonderful.
At Magnificat in February, and all proceeds will go to Featherston Booktown. So if you want to learn how to be a writer taught by the incomparable Joy Cowley, it's
that could be a game changer for people, couldn't it?
Oh, yeah.
A workshop like
that.
Yeah.
And I think, Joy's saying it's probably the last one she'll do.
Right.
So so Joy's been fabulously generous and helpful to Booktown, and she's not a figurehead. She contributes to the program. She's got very strong ideas, and she's been very generous with financial help as well. So we're lucky to have Joy in our community and in the Wairarapa and in New Zealand, really.
So where can people find out about that workshop?
You can go to the Featherston Booktown website, and you can get onto it there.
And when does the tasters of what's to come for the program next year come out? When can people start?
That'll be early next year. We'll have it locked.
Can we get you back?
We'll have
on
to
there?
get you back. I
Yeah.
think.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And in fact, we're about 3/4 of the way there, I
Right.
think. But we'll make sure that we've got it really, really locked solidly, and then let people know in good time.
Yeah.
Because we're looking at maybe making every event ticketed, just to allow people to have a seat, and we're going to have to look also at running events twice.
Yeah.
Dear Lydia Weavers gave a great session this year on rural romance writing.
Yes.
And people were peering in through the windows and trying to get in. And we could have run Lydia 2 or 3 times. So Lydia's coming back.
Awesome.
She's got a mystery writer she's going to talk about. All she'll tell me is that she's English. And I'm sure it'll be fascinating.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to look at running Lydia, Joy certainly, and other writers in one, or definitely 2 or 3 sessions. Yeah. Lloyd Jones has agreed to come.
Oh, great.
Dame Fiona Kidman.
That'd be a top one for me.
We're looking at the Sunday event being very focused on mums and women, because it's Mother's Day.
Great.
Are you looking at Emily Wright's?
Emily Wright's was so keen to come back. She was such a success
she's wonderful.
this year. She's definitely coming back, Emily.
Oh, good.
And we're going to have a Mother's Day lunch, literary lunch.
We're in.
So you can bring mum on the Sunday.
Okay.
We'll have a program for the kids, so if you want to leave the kids somewhere with your partner, and the mothers can have lunch.
Everything.
And we're looking at a panel of really terrific women writers talking about writing, how they write, their favourite books, and a wonderful lunch, catered lunch. So that's going to be a highlight. And the Sunday dimension being very much focused on women writers, we think will make a fabulous Mother's Day.
So for anybody who is worried about the book becoming an obsolete artefact, or technology taking over, I think that book towns and particularly the stories you've been telling us about Featherston slaps that one in the face, doesn't it?
It does, and I'm a bit controversial with my own book council board, but I think we've got to extend what reading is. I mean, happy for people to read on a tablet or
Kindle,
or audiobook.
Or I use a lot of audiobooks.
They're fantastic. It was interesting. I listen to podcasts all the time now. So is that reading? Don't know. Is the movie of a book? Don't know. But if it helps people get into reading, that's really important. It's very interesting that poetry is making a huge comeback at the moment. So we're looking to have a really strong representation of poets.
Great. What do you attribute that to, the re-rise of poetry?
That's a great question. I don't know, other than I think there's a genuine quest for meaning. And people want to reflect on their lives, and poetry enables us to do that in a very concise and wonderful way.
Yes.
Maybe the time poor people
it's concise. Also, our poetic tradition in this country is fabulous, and we're looking, Sam Ducker-Jones and Victoria University Press, we're looking to have fierce girl poets as an event. Maybe in the bar of the Royal, which will be strong and feisty. That'll be great. Sam Ducker-Jones had a wonderful idea of small evening events late at night in people's homes with a writer. So you get a level of intimacy and up closeness in a very small domestic setting with a writer. So we're just trying to mix it up a bit in terms of moving the program on, and the board really has been fabulous in bringing those ideas to the table and encouraging new thinking and new ideas. Because if we become boring and staid, I think that's not good. So
and
how can we keep surprising people?
And I think that's what Featherstone's all about, isn't it? As well, being surprising and being genuine and authentic, and
also letting people explore through the program and giving lots of options in terms of how they want to spend their time.
Yes,
and that is you're right. That's the great thing about Featherstone, because below the surface there's this extraordinary creative community.
Oh my God, yeah. This is why ReCooper8 started, because when I lived in Featherstone, everyone I met was either making, doing, writing, creating. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe that. And I think it's so exciting to see all that done in an ordinary, lovely place. You know, it's just, there's no pretensions. People are just getting on with it. And I can't remember who said it to me, but Featherstone was the place where Wellingtonians go to get over themselves.
I hadn't heard that. That's excellent.
And
that's
I have
brilliant.
to remember
Probably
who
true.
said that.
There's quite a lot of ex-Wellingtonians there.
Yeah, and
well, the other thing that I'm thrilled about in terms of Featherstone is there's Booktown, and then this whole theme of history coming through the town, and the town being distinctive around books and history, with the Fell Engine, with the Featherstone military camp, and a small group of Featherstonians like the Booktown trustees, and I'm one of both, have raised $600,000 plus to put a Paul Dibble sculpture up, which is being dedicated and given to the country on the Saturday before Armistice Day.
Wow.
By dear Grant Robertson's coming to dedicate it, and that is remarkable. So Paul Dibble did the sculpture Southern Stand in Hyde Park.
Right.
So it's an international sculpture, and it commemorates the 60,000 men who went through Featherstone Camp between 1916 and 1919.
Gosh.
New Zealand's largest ever military camp. So, and Featherstone, of course, had a very close relationship with the camp. In fact, Te Puhi, our place, which was built in 1868, where Mary and I live, I think there were 12 families in that farmhouse with they had men at the camp.
Wow.
And Kate Mead and Ross Vickery, two of the trustees on the Featherstone Booktown board, their place is the Soldiers' Rest, which I think was the Salvation Army hall for the soldiers. So there's a lovely historic dimension, tangata whenua history with Featherstone, colonial history with Featherstone, right up to the present day.
Who's is there a sister town or a twin town to Featherstone?
Yes, Messines. And again, that there's that First World War history there. So we're twin towned with Messines.
They might become a book town too someday.
Someday they might. And of course, Dave Gallagher, the All Black captain, 1905 All Blacks, went through the Featherstone military camp, then went over to Belgium, and was killed at the Battle of Broodsinder Ridge.
Gosh.
And just outside of Messines. So there's all these wonderful connections coming back to this small town.
Yeah.
And the great thing is that this march, which the figures in the columns depict a march, and that was the march they did when they left the camp, and they marched from Featherstone over the hill. And there's some great photographs of the time of, again, showing how strongly the community was linked into the camp. The women of Featherstone would give the boys morning tea or lunch at the top of the hill.
Gosh.
And then wave them off. And took 3 days, I think, to march to the troop ship.
Wow.
So and we're having a naming competition at the moment for the sculpture.
Okay.
We're asking the community to give us names. We've put about 12 names out there. So again, we want this to be a community piece and a community event on Saturday, November the 10th. So Booktown's happening. Gosh. Sculptures happening.
There's a lot going on.
There is so much going on.
Yeah. It's more bookshops are coming in, so it's very exciting and good for the South Wairarapa and good for the Wairarapa as a whole, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Peter, it's been an absolute pleasure. Wonderful. I can feel you becoming a fixture
Yes,
We'll
a
have
friend
the-
of the show.
A friend, absolutely.
I'd be delighted to come back.
we're
Just
the-
don't ask me to drive the desk. The
No.
chaos would ensue as it did in the 1980s.
I could do with some help, I tell you. There's lights flashing and...
You don't have to cue the records anymore.
No,
we
thank
did.
God. No.
We did.
But
Got Spotify
actually,
for that.
trying to... But that can be tricky too, when, especially if you press the wrong button or so. My mum called once halfway through a track. I've just had a text from my sister who's an avid listener. He's a nice chap.
Oh, that's high
We have
praise.
Sally
That's high
Cooper,
praise.
seal of approval.
Thank you, Sally.
Oh, it's been lovely talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
If people wanted to just visit the Featherston Booktown website, have you got that just off the top of your head? We will.
www.booktown.org.nz.
Wonderful, lovely. Thank you very much indeed. And we will definitely catch up with you again.
Yes.
Now let's play a quick track. And then we shall. Well, it's nearly time to go home. It's crazy. What would you like to play today?
Let's do Van Morrison. I'm feeling in
Okay.
that kind of vibe. Sweet Thing.
So,
Got that?
Oh yeah, he's
Sweet
playing.
Thing,
He was
Lucy?
playing all by himself. Hang on, I do have that, and I'm going to press play now.
And I will strong a merry way and jump the hedges first. And I will drink the clear, clean water for to quench my thirst. And I'll show out the ferry boats and they'll get high on a blue ocean against tomorrow's sky. And I will never grow so old again. And I will walk and talk in gardens all wet with rain. Oh, oh. Sweet thing, sweet thing. Yeah. Sweet thing. I shall drive my chariot down your streets and cry. Oh, it's beyond dynamite and I don't know why. And you shall take me strongly in your arms again. And I wonder, might remember that I ever felt the pain. We shall walk and talk in gardens all misty wet with rain down. And I will never grow so old again. Oh, 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 you sweet thing. Oh, 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 you sweet thing, sweet thing. My. And I will raise my hand up into the nighttime sky. A China star that shines in your eyes. That's just to dig it all, not to wonder, that's just right. And I'll be satisfied not to read in between the lines. And I will walk and talk in gardens all wet with rain. And I will never, ever, ever, ever grow so old again. Oh, oh, sweet thing. Oh, oh, oh. Sugar baby, sugar baby, sugar baby. What is champagne I have?
Van the man.
Hi. Welcome back. You're listening to ReCooper8 with me, Lucy Cooper, and you,
Katie
Abbott.
Abbott.
That was a wonderful Peter Biggs. Earlier on in the show, we had Felicity Abbott. It has been a roller coaster of a show, to the point that we have run over time significantly with Peter because it was so good talking to him. And
I'm very looking forward to the program release for next year.
Well, I think we're going to need like 2 hours for Booktown when that rolls around, and we could have a couple of booky guests on, couldn't we? And
bookies,
Peter, aren't we? Could,
yes.
Blah, blah, blah. It's looking great. So I did promise that I would play my interview with Steve, but I don't think we've got long enough for me to do it justice because it's 13 minutes long and we've got 12 minutes left. So, so I hope that that isn't a huge disappointment. But what I'm going to do is do a specific blog about Steve's project with the interview and a bit of information about how you can engage with Open Air Life, and you can find it on Facebook as well. So I thoroughly urge you to go and do that. Find it on Facebook, engage with it. It's an interactive art piece scattered across the Masterton urban area, and it's a beautiful interactive piece and done with Steve's usual grace and style and elegance. So I will certainly make a feature of that on my blog and share that with Steve and get that out there. I also will be creating a couple of other audio pieces about the block party and making sure that all that wonderful audio that people were very generous in giving me yesterday on the block party isn't wasted. I will create a couple of things out of it and I will spread them around. And
spread them around?
I will spread them around like margarine. So in the time that we have allotted, we're going to move to a book. Are we going to move to a book?
Well, book-related matters.
Okay.
Because Lit Crawl, so I think you might have remembered me mentioning it last year,
Yes.
this time last year. So Andrew Laking and Claire Mabey. Andrew Laking was on the show. He's
that's
from
right.
Pirate and Queen Productions, and they do Lit Crawl, which is a literary festival based in Wellington. And this year, Lit Crawl is fifth birthday, so they're having Lit Crawl on the one day, which is 22 venues, 26 sessions, and 130 writers in one night.
Jeez, that's
And you
insane.
literally crawl your way around and see all these wonderful things. That's 10th of November.
Okay.
But for their 5th birthday, they're doing a Lit Crawl extended. So that's a new 4-day program of amazing writers. They've got Emily Wright, who we've mentioned before, who's the mum blogger, amazing writer, and friends. She's doing a session with Holly Walker and other female writers. We've got Jessie Mulligan, who's from TV3's The Project and Radio New Zealand National, doing a short story club live session.
Right.
Mandy Hager, who I think she,
Yes, I do, yes.
she was at the Kokomai Festival.
Yes, and
doing her new book. So she's doing a Criplet session, which is... it's not particularly PC, but disability and literature.
Okay. Wow, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, neither did I. You find out all sorts of things in Lit Crawl. There's Jo Randerson, who's launching her poetry book. There will be Clementine Ford, the feminist writer from Melbourne.
Yes.
She'll be one of their big ticket items. She's coming over to launch her new book, Boys Will Be Boys.
Right.
And Lizzie Marvelly, who's a New Zealand female musician.
Yes.
She's debuting her memoir, That F Word.
Oh, yes.
And many, many more things. So I would recommend you go and check out their website. It's www.litcrawl.co.nz, and you can be directed there to buy. Most things are free.
Oh, gosh.
Some are ticketed. Most of the Lit Crawl extended are ticketed items. But, it's the actual Lit Crawl itself is a donation.
Right, gosh.
So it's
good?
brilliant. Yeah, amazing.
I wonder, how are they funded? Do you know?
They take donations, and I think they
must get some
grants.
funds. Yeah, gosh.
But they do an amazing punch.
They do.
Yeah. And one of the events that I will be going to is the launch of a new book, which I've been reading, called Headlands, which is New Stories of Anxiety. It's edited by Naomi Arnold from Victoria University Press. And I bought it yesterday from Headley's, good old Headley's.
Oh, good old Headley's.
They had it, and it is a brilliant collection of essays and interviews and writing about New Zealanders and their experience with anxiety.
Right.
So, did you know, Lucy, Ministry of Health figures showed that 1 in 5 New Zealanders sought help for a diagnosed mood or anxiety disorder, and these figures are growing. So Headlands tells the very real and very messy stories sometimes around people's experience of anxiety and what it feels like, what causes it, what helps it, what's helped these people, what doesn't. And this book is really it's very comforting in a way. There's some really, really uplifting stories, and there's some shocking ones. But
and have you has there been any messages or kind of things in there that you've kind of taken and thought, either that chimes with me or that's something I could use? Because I'm always on the lookout for things.
Well, as you know, I've had experience with anxiety myself recently, and I've just found it really comforting to read the book and to know that you aren't alone, and there are people who can write eloquently about the experience of it. And I just found it comforting in a way, even though some of the stories were quite confronting. But Headlands is doing a session at Lit Crawl as well. So Naomi Arnold, who's the editor, will be there with 4 of the contributors of the book to do a open chat session. That's in the extended program, so I think I'm going to that.
Great.
Yeah.
I've been, it was interesting that your sister Felicity Abbott mentioned meditation. And I've been, I know there are other apps available, but my app of choice is Headspace.
That's a good one.
Really enjoying that. I love Andy's voice. Oh, he's such a nice guy. You just say, let's have a cup of tea and talk about it a bit more. So I've been doing I'm halfway through the 30-day Managing Your Anxiety sessions. Amazing what it teaches you. And I think, just that importance of taking time to stop. Sometimes when I get into an anxious kind of spiral, or I'm great at catastrophizing, and what I find is I am like a rat on a wheel. And I just think, if I keep moving faster, I'll get ahead of it. I think that's seriously what I think I'm doing. But actually what you have to do is stop, because anxiety is a ball that will just roll past you, and you can just say bye. So I've been using it, but absolutely, I think sometimes hearing or reading other people's experiences can be reassuring, comforting, and yet knowing that they were able to write about it at some point, gives you that kind of sense this will pass. I don't know when or how, but it will. Awesome.
Lovely.
You'll have to report back on your.
I will.
Yeah,
I will. And what have you been up to, Lucy, lately?
Because we don't do out normal in our house. So me and Jez had tickets to go and see William Shatner's tour in New Zealand. And
incredible that he's still going when you told me his age.
87.
And a 2-hour show.
A 2-hour show, non-stop. He was going around that stage like a man half his age who looked like he might have had knee surgery. But, nevertheless, he did an incredible 2 hours. Really interesting. I didn't know what to expect. I always associate William Shatner with
terrible spoken word songs.
Or Star Trek.
Yes.
But actually, he's an incredible creative force, and he loves his craft of acting. He loves acting. It was just amazing to hear him talk about that. So it was a bit of a weird trip through his life, the highs and the lows. There was some overarching messages, which is, this kind of, I think he's a man, 87. You're bound to start thinking that you've got less in front than you have behind,
Yep.
So I think in some ways he was using that creative experience to explore some of the darker moments in his life. There was particularly one really confronting story that occurred in the middle of the show, which and again, it shows you the craft of the man. He kind of had everybody in the palm of his hands, laughing and, like rolling along. Then there was this really dark moment in the middle, and you could just feel like the floor fall out from everybody's feet. And then he was able to pick you up again and take you through. A really interesting way of using, performance as a way of battling your own demons. But yeah, overarching messages of kind of do it, don't. I think because he has had periods of his life where he said, no, I'm not going to do that. And also he's had a bit of a cultural cringe around his Star Trek as well. And I think it was when he spoke to, who's the guy that plays Jean-Luc Picard? Who's that? Bald? Yeah, him.
Yeah.
There was, it was him. Yeah, he's lovely, isn't he? And it was him who he said to William Shatner, it was the highlight of my career. And he said, and we think of that actor whose name we can't remember as being, so many other things. And appeared to be a very important moment for William Shatner, who I think carried the Star Trek around like a bit of a ball and chain.
Yeah.
And he turned that around. So really interesting show, and very interesting man, very funny, and very energetic and quite uplifting. Patrick Stewart. Thank you. Thank you, Google.
Thank you, Google.
Thank you, Katie. So yeah, it was a very interesting, really mixed crowd as well. Because I thought, well, who's going to
go there?
Exactly.
Trekkies?
No.
No.
All ages, all types, all genders, all nationalities. There were, you've got your bearded hipsters to little old ladies, the whole gamut. And again, made me feel super comfortable because I just thought, look at that, what that man can do. He appeals to so many people because he's done so many things, still churning out the creative work. Some of it a bit naff looking, but some of it really interesting and surprising.
Were the tickets expensive?
Well, they shouldn't have been.
But they were.
I'm going to tell you, so we might have just, hit upon one of those, inflated.
Oh,
it was an inflated ticket price.
You got scalped.
Yeah, and it makes you realise how easily it's done. Oh. And so I'm willing to talk off air about that to anyone who wants to hear it. But I mean, it wasn't too dreadful, but certainly gives you there is one company in particular, Viagogo. Am I allowed to say stay clear?
Oh,
yeah, because they make sure that they're the top of all internet searches when you're looking for tickets.
Yeah.
It's really, really poor form. And it was a sellout show. But yeah.
Lots of people fell into that trap. I think Pink tickets, Madonna tickets.
At least we got in, and it was, well worth it.
Yeah.
But I think do be aware out there. I like to think of myself as a moderately switched on person. I know sometimes I don't come across like that, but, it's fairly cautious, but it's really easily done. Yeah. And you hear all sorts of things like people getting invoices from reputable companies and it's not that invoice. It's been completely cloned by nasty people. What time? Oh, got 2 minutes. We've got to go. Can we say thank you to our sponsors?
Yes, let's.
Thank you so much,
Ursula and Tony
at the Top Pub,
Greytown's premier hotel.
Absolutely. When can we go and do the cider platter?
Sunday.
Lovely.
Cider Sundays starting from now until the summer. The last of the summer wine.
Brilliant.
Last of the summer cider.
Well, we will see you in there Sunday, people, won't we? Why not?
Yes.
Like head olives on the platter. I'll go anywhere for an olive.
Cured meats.
I love a cured meat.
I love a cured meat too. In moderation. In moderation.
Oh, really? Why?
Yes, because of the...
Well, look, if you were to eat a whole year's...
You know how they say you can't have too much bacon because it's got sulfites in it or something.
But if you were to eat a whole year's allocation of cured meats in one day and didn't eat it for the rest of the year, that's okay, isn't it? That's okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Leave it at that. You eat as much cured meat as you like, dear listener. Okay, we better go. It's been lovely speaking to you all. It's been lovely, lovely, Katie. It's so good to be back in here with you.
Yes,
and
thank you.
So good that we haven't broken anything yet. I'm so pleased about that.
I'm loving the new space. Well done.
It's pretty cool, eh? Yeah, well
good
done.
Find.
Yeah, really good stuff. All right, love you all. We'll see you next month. Look out on our blog, ReCooper8.com, for that interview with Steve. I do apologise to everyone for not playing it tonight, but we had a lot to fit in, and I think it's been a good show. Okay,
in order.
See you later, everybody.